Hi, all. Welcome back to day 2 of the Research Bazaar. I had such a good day yesterday, so I'm really excited for today. This morning session, we're going to be talking a lot about open source and research around that area, and then the open source awards. So we're starting out this morning with Dr. Song Gao, who's a professor in the Department of Geography and a faculty affiliate at the Data Science Institute. And he's going to tell us more about his work with geospatial data. So.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Good morning, and this is Song. I'm very honored to be here to share some of our research about geospatial AI, and especially in collaborating with a lot of science domains. And so, as Sarah mentioned, that a lot of our work also are open source. So we usually, after work, we also push to our GitHub. And today I'm going to briefly introduce you the idea of the geospatial artificial intelligence known as Geo AI, and then how to develop different Geo AI methods and what are the challenges and new opportunities in interdisciplinary collaboration. And in the past years, we have witnessed a lot of AI advancements and also the application or co-design in geography and earth sciences. So, those are some of the hot topics, and, you might heard some of those. For example, we can utilize, deep learning methods to do the near real-time land cover, land use classification, and globally. So using, for example, 30-meter resolution Landsat multispectral image or the 10-meter Sentinel, also multispectral imageries. And we can also, doing those semantic segmentation to do the geography objects identification and geolocalization, such as identification of craters or lakes or even trees, right? Using those more advanced sensing technologies. And as the methodology developments, we can also develop new so-called intelligent spatial interpolation method or downscaling. So this is very important in physical geography and climate modeling, as we know that the Earth is so big, we only sample limited data sets at a certain space and also over time. So this is why we rely on a lot of spatial temporal interpolation, downscaling to get a fine granular data set to support research. And also, lastly, also those, very interesting topic. Also, in 2019, there was a Nature paper about the integration of their deep learning methods with the Earth system modeling. So that is essentially there are different ways to couple those physics models with those machine learning or deep learning to enable, on one hand, more efficient, more accurate, prediction modeling. On the other hand, how can make those, machine learning model more interpretable and expandable by incorporation of the physics model. That is the core concept here. And so what is Geo AI in a nutshell? And there are different definitions. So one of the definitions coming from me. Calling the Geo AI is the study or integration of the geospatial technologies and with AI, especially to develop those data-driven and knowledge-guided geospatial machine learning methods. Essentially, we aim to develop an intelligent computer program and or multiple programs and such that can mimic the process of the human perception and then the spatial reasoning, as well as the enable those discovery of the geography phenomenon as well as human environment interactions. So I will use some of the examples later to demonstrate this idea. And we also inspired by actually last year those discussion about the AI for science and then also science for AI. So that's the reciprocal relationship. We also talk about how the Geo AI can enable in different applications. Also, what are the core research topics within the geospatial AI itself? So in this cube, you can see that regarding the model, we focused on 3 dimensions about their predictability. This is a more classic topic about model performance, but also to enable those, this model more transparency or, reliable, responsible, we also need to have those interpretation or expandability. And then on the other hand, we also want to make sure those model we develop are reproducible or replicatable. Reproducible meaning that using same data, same code, you can reproduce the result. And replicatable means that, you're using a different maybe data set, but still following the same model, same procedure, you can replicate these results, and the funding remain. However, this is very challenging. So I will mention later because there is a underlying heterogeneity in the geography space. So because our Earth is not homogeneous, so this is why you might not expect such a strong generalizability or transferability in geospatial study. So that's actually a key difference when we think about the purpose of general AI development. Always, right? Computer scientists aim to develop generalizable or transferable models. However, there is a challenge in geospatial AI. So now next I will just using one example to demonstrate how we develop some of those geo AI methods. And first of all, and regarding those spatial prediction interpolation methods, a lot of domain using, for example, very classic regression models. Some of those geospatial data, they might use spatial regression, which means that they will consider the spatial, autocorrelation in those, dependent variable and also the independent variable. So, but using those classic spatial regression models, there is underlying assumption that is a linear relationship. But we know that a lot of physical or social phenomenon, they cannot be modeled as linear. So this is why using those spatial cross-sectional data. So the idea of integration of deep learning or machine learning into those spatial regression model is that we can using those neural network architecture to capture those nuances and then the complexity or nonlinear relationships. So in both those expandable variables as well as dependent variable. So by combination of both, we have two characteristics for this kind of model. On one hand, we can capture those nonlinear complexity. On the other hand, we can still keep those good expandability or interpretability of the regression model. So that is two benefits here. And that is just one idea about how to utilize deep learning to enable those intelligent spatial prediction. But generally speaking, the key idea of in the GeoAI method development, we are trying to incorporate the spatial concepts and principles listed on the right, such as what we discuss a lot in geography or sciences, such as the distance, the direction, the topology, and then the spatial heterogeneity of the phenomenon, and also the hierarchical relationship or geographic similarity about the environment. And then we can incorporate those into those, standard of art, AI methodologies, no matter it's neural network or knowledge graphs, and then such that they can support those, geospatial, applications, because we know that a lot of applications cross-domain do need the location and then environmental context. So that is the key assumption here. And now I will, deep into further one specific, use case that we collaborated with the Wisconsin Department of Health Services. And as we know that for each type of health service, no matter is primary care or the dental care or the mental care, we need to design a health service area or zone, and such that make sure that, for example, for primary care, we want to make sure that all the people within this zone, they have access to the primary care within 30 minutes, and then for mental is 1 hour, and for dental is 40 minutes. So that is a regulation or that's a requirement. So which means that for design those zones, we need to consider the travel patterns and also the physical barriers. But also during those zoning, especially in order to get some of those federal funding support, we need to designate the so-called on the right high showing those health professional in the shortage areas, which means that they need more support, and then because they have a shortage in those full-time employees, FTE values. And in other words, every year or every several years, and each state and DHS need to submit those plans to the HHS, and such that they can get the support. So in that process, one of the prerequisites is to so-called design a rational service area, RSA. So rational service area is a larger area than those so-called HIPSA, and they can be used to further determine within this area whether you're meeting certain health criteria, and such that will be the target. Areas can be county or smaller than county, so in terms of geographic boundary. So this is why we need actually more intelligent method to designate those rational service area. So that is why. But one of the idea we can use, based on how people travel or how people move around the state, we can using maybe some off-the-shelf, community detection or clustering algorithms and networks. However, if we directly using this off-the-shelf methods, we actually cannot able to incorporate both the node level information, the edge level, the spatial interaction, as well as some of the nuances we talk about here in both physical and also the social dimension. So this is why, motivated by this use case, and we develop a new family of the methods, especially for the community detection, or known as also you can call it clustering, because essentially we are, clustering or group those different regions together such that they can serve as the basic unit for the rational service area for health applications. And the key idea here is that we want to incorporate the node similarity, so that they are those, for example, different sensor tracks or different sensor blocks used based on their social demographics or the economic factors based on the US Census Bureau data. And we also need to consider the geography adjacency or geography linkages between those different zones, as well as the travel, because as I mentioned, because based on the definition or regulation, we need to consider the human travel. So that is we model as the spatial interactions between the nodes. So in other words, in our methodology, we need to consider those three aspects. So node level similar attribute similarity, the geography adjacency constraints, and also the spatial interaction captured by the human travels. So that are the different criteria that both need to consider both node and edge level consideration. So we take the graph neural network as a backbone, and then we modify those different, such as how the loss is designed. We need to modify that such that it can capture those, those all three aspects in the loss function, and we change that, and then we are able to generate the so-called neural embedding that are be able to capture all those three dimensions, and then we can use classic agglomerative clustering and constrained by the geography adjacency, and then the right hand will be the the output. And so that is how we generate the first step about rational service area. And then how good it is, as you can see on the figure on the left, we demonstrate first of all regarding the node in attribute similarity, we're using the constraint similarity, and also the the human travel pattern, the interaction. So the good model is supposed to be aligned with the diagonal, because we should have a high node similarity as well as a high interaction, such that people can just travel within the zone rather than between the zone to access the health healthcare. And we also compare with a lot of state-of-the-art community detection and networks. So, and after that, based on the the DHS documentation, also this is also same for the federal level requirements. We need to incorporate those health specific constraints to designate those health professional shortage area, and also we make a accessible tool for the DHS, and also this tool can be available in the, for example, one of the mainstream GIS software, ArcGIS, and as a toolbox, such that not only Wisconsin DHS but also other states and can also use it. And we are also invited by the federal level office to describe and also share our documentation, this tool to them. And this is hopefully based on the example, you can see how we develop those geo AI methods. So definitely there are also other challenges and issues in this area, and namely those like for example the prediction uncertainty, those ethics, privacy issue, heterogeneity, and fairness, and then many so on. And due to time, I will not go through it, but we actually, last year, we just published a handbook of Geo AI. So if you are interested, you can check out our university library has access both the digital version and the printed version. And here I would just highlight some of those issues that we have been working on. So one of those definitely about the location privacy. So you probably heard this story, some of you, and think about every time, how many of you have a smartphone? Okay, yeah, everyone, right? How many of you turn on the location service? Okay, yeah. So you probably read a New York Times article, right? Your app know where you are last night. So if you didn't, you can check again. So this is a person's last night individual georeference location, and based on some very basic spatial clustering algorithms, we can identify their cluster centroid. And then based on a geospatial technology called the reverse geocoding, which means that converts the geographic coordinates to an address. And then we'll know this individual, although we don't know who they are yet. Okay, so giving the individual address. And then based on some of their public, for example, the real estate or some of their, housing transaction records, we are able to match this address to that records. Through those cross-linking, actually, just based on this coordinate info, we know who they are. So this is the idea behind that New York Times article, why the app know where you are last night. So that is, you think about this over time, and basically those companies own your identity, even you don't share them explicitly. So that is the big challenge about the geospatial data. And thanks to the AmFan Data Science Institute Research Grant Initiative, we are able to actually to counter this process, to develop geo AI models such that we can generate those delegates of individuals. So which means that we are not sharing those individual level data, but for a lot of location business support or decision making analysis, we're using those generated agents and such that they are not accessible to the raw data. And one of the key designs, similar to our collaboration with Wisconsin DHS, and in this work, we also modify those loss function. In addition to the traditional cross entropy loss, we also consider the characteristics of the trajectory data. So that is in the highlighted one. We also consider the spatial similarity, the temporal similarity, and also the semantic similarity, between those generative individual, trajectory delegate compared with the raw data. And in the experiments, we tested, and the idea is that, okay, assume that you have access to an individual trajectory. So even we know very limited information about the individual, about the user identity, but how can we, search the database, identify who they are? So if we don't do anything, so this user linking model can achieve over 93% accuracy. So this actually aligned with one of the paper published in Science in 2010 about that. We only need to know you for spatial temporal unique points. We're able to identify you over 93% accuracy. So you think about this is actually sounds scary, but you think about, if you choose top 4 visited location, think about yourself. It's actually highly, accurate because, right, the 2 anchor point, home, work location, but you add 2 more, you actually will be differentiate yourself to the person next to you, right? So that's the rationale behind why 4 spatial temporal points can identify you at the accuracy of 93%. But through those our GeoAI model developments, we are able to decrease such accuracy to below 50%. And the other interesting issue, so we already talked about a lot about the biases in the AI model development because those are sampling bias in the data or the label quality. Sometimes those models are not able to generalize in different locations or different places. And also the human perception biases, even, for example, if you look at different street views, and you might have a different perception of the safety. But, the AI community may not actually specifically consider the third type, the spatial bias, which is the GeoAI researcher are most interesting. For example, here on the right hand, I show you a very interesting example. If you're using the model trained in Boston about the house price to predict the house price in Detroit, so you'll get that spatial pattern. But on the reverse side, you're using the model trained in Detroit and to predict the house price in in Boston. So you will get reverse results, but we know that if this is ground truth, this is what predicted. We know that because of the, central, location or central place, derogation happened in the Detroit. This is not true, right? If you're using a model developed in Boston, so this is why, coming to my earlier statement about the weak transferability or generalizability about the model, about GeoAI model. So this is again some controversial with the aim of the AI model development to be generalizable and transferable, but that is fact because the physical environments are not necessary to be homogeneous, right? So we cannot using just the model trained in one city to be generalized to another different city. So keeping the geospatial context in mind. Also about the fairness, off-the-shelf AI model may consider a good performance such that they can have a good overall performance. However, there's a difference about the spatial fairness. If you consider we have 9 regions or we have 8 congressional districts in Wisconsin, but if you think about the model, if you train in different regions and then you get, okay, overall, both models have 80% accuracy, but would you like to choose one model with, all 80%, or you want to choose a model, some region perform well 100% or 90%, some of them are very bad, very weak, 40%. But overall, 2 models achieve the same 80% accuracy. So this is why I hope that this presentation can, really inspire you to think about, right, why spatial is important in a lot of cases, no matter is a spatial heterogeneity or spatial fairness. So this is very important in those real-world AI model development. And also, in geography, environmental sciences, we'll talk a lot about the sustainability, right? What's the meaning of the sustainability in AI or in GeoAI? We know that, right? Those big data center or big, like a large scale foundation model require a lot of resources, right? Electricity and water, cooling and so on and so forth. So this is why we also need to consider the sustainability issues in, training or developing those large scale models. So lastly, I just want to share with you some of our latest, perspective about the next generation, AI-powered cyber infrastructure to support the computational learning in their environment. So that is also I'm a co-investigator in this National AI Institute funded by NSF. And the key idea here is that, traditionally we have been developing those AI models in both the, PC, the HPC center, also on the cloud. But nowadays we can see more and more applications such as yesterday Keynote about using those drones or those robotic dog, right? Those sensing things. And those AI model deployment are closer to the edge devices or edge site. So this is why we need to have those intelligent cyber infrastructure. And within the ICICL, the goal is actually one of the key concepts about the interdisciplinary collaboration is we are actually advocating and implementing the co-design idea. In other words, on the right side, we have 3 use in biosciences, including animal ecology and the food system, as well as digital agriculture. We think that those are the key areas about those AI usage in their environment. And through the multidisciplinary collaboration, we can do a lot of, use in bioscience, not just the computer scientists sitting in the computer think about what would be the real use case or demonstration. So that is a real, iteration process about the co-design. And with the help of that, we are able to, really develop those different, this is just one of those advancements, such as the science agent bench. We are able to collaborate with different domain scientists and came out what are their, real data-driven and not driven, scientific tasks, such as can be, evaluated by those latest, for example, large language model, those language agents, and also involving those domain experts for their evaluation. So this is actually the latest work was just accepted at this year's International Conference on Learning Representation, which is one of the top AI conferences. But the takeaway message, good news, is the AI agents can only achieve about 40% success rate. So which relax a little bit, right? So we still need the scientists, to do a lot of, real, scientific work. Okay. That's all for my presentation. Some of the takeaway is that, as you can see that in the Geo AI world, is not only apply the AI methodologies, but it's a two-way street. So we are actually contributing to those advanced AI methods. But in the development and using those models, we need to definitely, think about those, what are the privacy issues, the biases issue, the sustainability issues, and we can really, co-design those models and for a better world and through those interdisciplinary collaboration. I do want to thank all the funding agencies, also my team and students, so all for all their support. Yeah, thank you very much.